Two friends who'd been drinking with the young man feared the worst. They told police they'd fallen asleep at the northern end of Nobby's Beach, and the last time they saw their friend, he'd been trying to convince them to go for a swim.
His clothing and everything was still with them when they found it about 3:30 this morning, and they were unaware as to where he'd gone. They'd searched the beach and couldn't find him, and they assumed that unfortunately he'd been lost at sea.
For 2 hours, more than 24 police mounted a massive search by land, air and sea. Just when authorities decided to call in police divers, officers received word the missing man had been found.
He's turned up at home, fortunately for us, rather intoxicated but well and healthy and asleep at home.
The security guard's relieved girlfriend thanked police for their time and effort.
The man at the centre of this morning's drama could not be found for comment. As to how he got home to Cessnock with no clothes, police say he hitchhiked.
Probably no offences available for stupidity, but he'll obviously learn a valuable lesson, I hope, as a result of it, and I'm sure his friends will make sure that he never does it again.
Vanessa Trezise, NBN News. Police say a scuffle between hotel patrons and security guards broke out at the Queen's Wharf Brewery at 11:30 last night. Staff have told police several intoxicated people had refused to leave.
When police went down, they arrested 2 people, and as a result of that, a number of others decided that they were going to hinder the police in the arrest of those 2 people.
One person was taken to hospital and treated for a bruised eye. 7 people were arrested, 5 charged.
Charged with offences varying from offensive behaviour, resisting arrest, assault police, and also with malicious damage.
Meantime, police have announced they're extending a blitz on antisocial behaviour in the suburbs of Hamilton and Islington. The operation started in Newcastle CBD on Friday and Saturday nights, where officers arrested 14 people. Ironically, it was McDonald's in King Street, the scene of another brawl 2 weeks ago, where police made their presence known. Officers from the Operational Support Group used their powers to disperse 126 people to try and stop large crowds congregating. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
Has United's horror run of luck finally changed? Fans would certainly hope so, and the signs certainly indicate as much, starting with John Bonavoli's injury time goal against the Pride that earned Newcastle's second win this season.
Yeah, well, you hope so, as you say, that's 1 ounce of luck that we've had so far this year, but we've had, probably 10 or 12 bits of bad luck.
And for the first time in weeks, there wasn't a major injury, and a host of players are now available this week, including Todd McManus and Anthony Surgeon. The only concern is over Anthony Magnaca, who's been playing with a heel problem over the last few weeks. As for contract talks, Sterry expects to begin negotiations with club management on Wednesday.
There's a lot of plans to be put on the table because we had such a late start, and Con knows that, we all know that. We've just got to sit down and get our heads together, and he's got to lay the plans on the table.
Well, he was fine, I'm available to play, and at the end of the day it's up to Lee who's going to put on the park, and if he chooses to include me.
The locals at the Shortland Swamp were excited by today's news that the future of the centre was assured for the next 12 months. An emergency grant of $50,000 helping the volunteer-based organisation to stay afloat.
It's recognising that you do need dollars to keep doing a good job. So it's certainly to make sure that they're viable and to make sure that the incredible team of volunteers who are here, the work they've put in, literally some of them for more than decades, doesn't all stop, doesn't go to waste.
Well, it's always a struggle when you've got a community organisation which is basically unfunded to keep the organisation going. But we've got 140 volunteers. We had 60 people here yesterday helping with the gardens and the plants.
The centre accommodates around 15,000 visitors a year. The federal government keen to encourage more.
We are trying to make sure the word swamp is a joy, and the connotation is that we protect and love our swamps and our wetlands because they are a barometer of the health of our whole ecosystem.
Paul Lobb, NBN News. The last 12 months have been the Hunters' best ever on the jobs front, with more than a third of the region's population in work.
We reached record employment in the Hunter region, and we have now just under 270,000 people working in the Hunter, and at the same time our unemployment rate trended downwards.
Economists say the boom has come despite the end of steelmaking in Newcastle in September 1999.
The expectations were at the beginning of last year that unemployment would rise, but in fact it went in the other direction. Unemployment actually improved throughout the year.
Employment growth remains at a high 11%, with the unemployment rate under 10%. New passenger vehicle sales are up, along with the region's coal exports. But on the downside, the home building industry remains in a slump, and there are signs that business has reached its peak.
Conditions are weaker. Businesses are still very optimistic about the future, but they have been reporting a weakness in profits and weaker trading.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Many queued for as long as an hour at Newcastle, the state's third biggest TAFE campus. More than 100,000 people are expected to enrol in 45 TAFEs across northern New South Wales and the Central Coast. The number of people joining traditionally popular courses such as hospitality remains high, but interest in web design and information technology has superseded the trade-orientated programs.
I think every job these days needs a lot of computing skill.
An emergence of interest in environmental and science areas. Health, childcare, aged care are showing a very high demand.
Many in the crowd, like Phil Collivis, a painter and decorator of 21 years, are opting for a major life change to become an aged care nurse.
GST and just too much work involved in running
running a business. I've got kids, and you've got to have time with them.
Yeah, working on my father's farm at the moment, and I've done a surveying degree at university, and I'm doing a Spanish course here as well as welding, just a bit extra.
1,200 courses are on offer, and if you forgot to enrol today, don't despair. You've still got one day left, next Monday. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
A meet and greet for some of the sport's big names today, with Olympians Kyle van der Kuyp and Andrew Murphy mixing it with fans at Charlestown. Just a few seats away, Michael Perry, less known but no less talented. He's about to face some of the biggest names in triple jump in his own backyard.
It's going to be a good time for me to be able to prove myself out here in my hometown and get a bit of recognition for myself.
The trio hit Glendale this afternoon for a late hit-out before tomorrow night's opening Grand Prix meet. And with 4 international competitors taking part, triple jump will be the feature-filled event of the night.
It's about time, I reckon.
One of the world's best, Murphy is getting back into the swing of things after Sydney 2000, but that won't mean he'll be taking things easy.
I'm not putting a distance in mind tomorrow, but it's if I get wrapped up in a competition, I'm sure something special will come out because I hate getting beaten.
Van der Kuyp feels the same way. He had 7 weeks off after the Sydney Olympics, but now makes his return and prepares for the World Championships in August.
I'm not expecting to run PBs tomorrow, but if I can just go out there and enjoy it, I'll have some young guys that'll be keen to knock me off, so that'll keep me honest.
Action starts tomorrow night from 6 o'clock with an opening ceremony that's tipped to be something special. A second successive win was what United wanted to bring back, but the side arrived home today with another draw and 1 competition point.
Yeah, we were very sluggish for the first 30 minutes. Took us a while to get going, and as I said, they could have scored in the first half, and we had probably opportunities in the second half.
Traditionally, Queensland's home of rugby union, Ballymore was wet to say the least. The opening few minutes, it looked more like a game of stuck in the mud, with Brisbane unable to strike home first. It's not often you see this. Pint-sized striker John Bonavolia actually coming out of a collision with another player for the better. Nick Meredith had to be helped off. There was no doubting Brisbane had the better of the scoring opportunities though. Like the weather, they flooded the front of Newcastle's goal, but Bob Catlin and Todd McManus did their best to plug leaky defence as the score sheet stayed dry. When more chances came and went for the home side, the frustration boiled over after half-time, with substitute Peter Dwyer booked for a second time and sent off. Against 10 men, Newcastle had their opportunities to crack home the match winner. While Brisbane fought hard as well, 0-0 was how it stayed.
A federal government program called the Regional Health Strategy will see $117.6 million committed to improving rural health education and training. The money will fund 2 projects, the first being clinical schools which allow undergraduate students to work in local hospitals under the care of local doctors.
It brings an ability to attract doctors into an area where at least they feel they have not lost contact with an academic unit.
The aim is to encourage more medical staff to rural areas, and it's already working in some regions like the Greater Murray.
We have attracted up to 12 new doctors into the area simply on the basis that there is a clinical school here.
The other project is to develop university departments of rural health in country areas, a training facility rather than a practical experience clinic. Newcastle University will receive funding to establish such a school in Tamworth, and there'll also be one set up in Lismore. Adam Harper, NBN News.
The trial of Robert Gillies was over in just minutes this morning after a jury was directed by the judge to deliver a not guilty verdict. The 36-year-old ambulance driver was acquitted of 1 count of dangerous driving causing grievous bodily harm over an accident at Beresfield in December 1998. The Department of Public Prosecutions said it could not offer evidence to proceed with the Crown case, as most of it was ruled inadmissible by the judge during legal argument. Victim Kerry-Ann Ridley was left stunned by the decision after pursuing the case through the courts for more than 2 years.
Well, I've come this far and I've been through a lot to get to today, and with the decision that was made, I think was inadequate.
The 44-year-old woman was minutes from her Woodbury home at the intersection of Wheatley's Drive when she was struck by an ambulance on the way to an emergency. Mrs. Ridley was airlifted to hospital from the scene, where she remained in a coma for 2 days, suffering from multiple injuries. Her son Justin and his girlfriend Prue, both passengers in the vehicle, were also injured.
I've got a lifetime of injuries. I'll never work again.
Mr. Gillies and the ambulance service both declined to comment to the media today. Helen Kapelos, NBN News.
During what many recall as the heyday of the harbourside city, there was the regular hustle and bustle of trams down Hunter Street. The idea of reintroducing trams to Newcastle, just as Sydney did 4 years ago, was first raised by Newcastle's Lord Mayor John Tate last July. The Sydney Tramway Museum is willing to donate 6 vintage trams for a trial. They would run along the existing train tracks between Broadmeadow and Newcastle. Last night, a council committee heard that modifications on the first of 6 trams were finished.
We're trying to get together some money to get them transported to this area, and then we'll try and find money to get them restored. Now, that doesn't solve the public transport needs, but what it does is give us a supply of vehicles that can be used as a tourism attraction.
If they proved effective, the hope is to eventually introduce modern trams.
The rail corridor not only divides Newcastle's foreshore in two, but its very existence has polarised community views for many years. At the heart of the argument of those who want it to go is that Newcastle is a harbourside city with restricted access to the harbour.
The corridor is vastly underutilised and it slices through the city in a way that inhibits movement from one side to the other.
It's just one of a multitude of issues which will be outlined in a Hunter transport strategy to be presented to the state government this year. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
5 years ago, the Scott family went public about their plight to get appropriate care for their severely disabled son John. Diagnosed as profoundly intellectually disabled, their youngest child required 24-hour supervision. His epilepsy resulted in uncontrollable fits with up to 100 seizures a day. Throughout his life, he also remained doubly incontinent.
The parents become a slave to the disability. They're not a slave to the person, because we all love the person.
So in May 1999, in a desperate move, his parents, Chris and Elspeth, left him at a doc's office in Newcastle after several requests to place him in group accommodation were ignored.
If you had to live 24 hours in our shoes or the shoes of other families in the same situation, it's just an impossible task, and you wouldn't make a judgment on anything like abandonment or neglect.
A temporary solution came when he was given crisis accommodation at Stockton Centre, but in a unit with 45 aged care adults. Nearly a year later, he was dead, an autopsy revealing he died of chronic epilepsy.
There was plenty of evidence and telegraphing of what was going to happen. And if the Ageing Disability Department and the Minister had made some efforts earlier on, John's last year of life would have been much more comfortable.
A coroner will deliver his findings tomorrow. Helen Kapelos, NBN News.
There's little doubt Gordon Jervis has landed the catch of the day. Yesterday afternoon at 4 o'clock, as he does every second day, the 74-year-old made his way down to the wharf in front of his retirement village at Bolton Point to dangle his line. He didn't have to wait too long.
I had a bite, and within a couple of seconds this large fish took off across the lake.
Gordon battled with his catch for an hour before dragging it up onto the bank. On his 20-pound line, Gordon had reeled in a 34-kilogram, 1.5 metre jewfish. The chef helped him haul it to the kitchen, where it'll feed the other 94 residents for quite a few days. Gordon did consider letting the big one get away.
When I first saw the fish and how much slime and how green he was for being a jewfish, I felt remorseful about cutting him off. I said, that fish is almost as old as I am.
And even though he's caught the big one,
I'll be possibly back there in about half an hour.
Catherine Turner, NBN News.
How you doing? Good. How are you?
After touring an aged care facility at Shoal Bay, Kim Beasley took an unexpected detour. He heard from 3 residents protesting against aircraft noise from the RAF Saltash bombing range. Earlier, Mr Beasley had recommitted Labor to relocating the range.
That's not an easy thing to do, as I think folk here comprehend. It happens to be well adjacent to the facility at Williamstown. However, you can do some of that activity at sea, and we'll be encouraging them in that direction and encouraging them onto the other sites, the other bombing opportunities.
But some say there's no need.
I don't mind them. I could watch them all day. Knowing that the petrol prices debate could make or break either party, Mr Beasley says he's the only one that understands that people in regional areas often suffer more than their city counterparts.
What we have in the Parliament is a bill to freeze the last petrol price increase.
Meantime, the member for Paterson is contemplating a One Nation backlash.
And if we listen to the statements of Pauline Hanson, then they'll be directing their preferences against me.
At the last election, there we had the Labor Party yelling down One Nation, but on the day they turned up in force with the union movement, handing out how to votes, vote One Nation, vote 2 Bob Hine. That's hypocrisy at its highest level.
Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
27-year-old Patrick Guthrie from Tumbyumby and 20-year-old Adam O'Shea from Gosforth at the Hunter only made a brief appearance in Newcastle Court today, but it was enough to cause great distress to the pair's families. Mr Guthrie's mother collapsing outside the court after seeing her son's badly injured face. The men were charged over the attempted robbery of an ATM machine at Morisset on Saturday. Police facts alleging Mr Guthrie used an axe to smash a window beside an ATM and with the help of O'Shea placed a winch around it to pull the machine out with the force of his vehicle. Police facts tendered in Newcastle Court today allege they possessed a .45 calibre pistol, 2 semi-automatic rifles and around 500 rounds of ammunition in the cabin of their truck. Magistrate Morahan refused bail for both men despite an application from Guthrie's solicitor requesting medical attention for her client, including a CAT scan. The men will now appear in court on the 20th of February. Helen Kapelos, NBN News.
Maitland shopkeeper John Lee hit the national headlines last year when he was charged with assault after detaining a boy he suspected of stealing from his store. Now another young man, convicted of taking videos from his shop, has had his conviction wiped on appeal.
This lad was given the red carpet treatment and I was treated like a nobody. He had 2 people representing him in court and legal aid's supposed to be short of money. Red carpet treatment all the way along and I got nothing.
Mr Lee now wants a trial of user pays policing in his local area, with shopkeepers footing the bill.
If we had paid police patrols, which the commercial people pay for, we would have cars crisscrossing the city all night with full powers to apprehend.
Police say existing legislation won't allow it.
That is a very difficult option and probably one that we couldn't look at now. However, in terms of meeting with Mr Lee and the Business Chamber, we're happy to be part of a team which looks at any range of solutions.
Police Minister Paul Whelan has agreed to consider the idea, but not everyone agrees it's a good one.
I think business people and the general community already foot the bill.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.